Hey, podcast listeners. Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcast? Good news. With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. Stay up to date on everything newsworthy by downloading the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free news. That's amazon.com/ad-free news to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
The mighty and resilient Merrimack River, carving through the communities of our great region. My name is Linda Lorden, proud president of Merrimack County Savings Bank. And like the river that serves as our namesake, we're a constant yet ever-changing presence. Because to us, it's bigger than banking. It's about powering communities and putting people first. It's about knowing where you came from and where you're going. That's Merrimack style. Visit us at themerrimack.com.
Welcome to the Old Souls and Seekers podcast, a podcast that transcends the typical personal development journey. You're not new to this. You've read the books, attended the seminars, and perhaps even tried various coaching programs, yet something still feels amiss. Elon and Guy have over 2 decades of relentless searching and $1 million invested in their personal growth quest. Here's the revelation. You're not missing anything. You're not even behind. You might have just been searching in the wrong places. In each episode, we'll uncover the most effective, straightforward practices that have profoundly impacted our lives and the tens of thousands of our clients from all over the world. This is about real, sustainable results for those dedicated to their personal and spiritual growth. So get ready to explore and enjoy the show. Howdy doody, everybody. Feel free to say hi in the chat box there. Let us know that you're out there in internet land. So welcome, everybody. I really enjoyed last week just having more interaction with you guys. And so I'd love to, partly do dissertations here, but also have you guys interact and just kind of chime in with, an area of life or something that you're investigating or currently struggling with, something that Elon and I can kind of weave our magic into your life as well and support you. A lot of you guys here are new. And, if you've never been on these calls before, I see Sandy and Tanai, Rachel, Suzanne, a bunch of other people here that I haven't gone to look at. See, we got Andrea. What's up, girl? Ingrid, Veronique, Jody. A bunch of you guys here for some reason are showing up multiple times, so I can't figure out if you're just in here.
For Australians, the time change actually is beneficial.
Yeah. So if you're brand new to our community, these calls are really kind of they do a lot of different things. It's not direct training, although we're happy to give you some coaching and feedback, and not a super invasive way. It's also for Elon and I to have just conversations with you guys about our experience in being in transformational and healing work for the last 22 years. And so we draw upon, at this point in time, a pretty large pool of different disciplines and practices and experiences, as you can imagine. If any of you who have done anything for 22 years straight, whether it's play a musical instrument, do some art, business, entrepreneurship, in our case, personal development and entrepreneurship, and we have been doing that literally, I'm not joking, day in and day out for 22 years. So, there's a certain level of mastery, I would say, which is really just to say a lot of experience. And we have had the privilege, continue to have the privilege of working with thousands of people all over the world, tens of thousands over the last 22 years, different organizations. And so again, we draw on a lot of different wisdom practices and points of views that we have cultivated over that long period of time. And so, you have whatever programs you're in, those programs are super dialed in and have a real intention and purpose. Here, it's really to bring the community together, like we would in the form of a conversation. I have a desire personally to bring this call actually on Zoom with everyone's faces on there. Because personally, I don't know how you feel, I enjoy seeing your faces when we're having conversations.
I do too, yeah.
A lot more, but it does create some limitations in how we like communicate and how people register to this, which is why we haven't moved it to that yet. But I'm looking into how we can have this be a little bit more of like a roundtable conversation, because the reality is you're probably here to hang out with us. And the truth is we're here to hang out with you. And the cool part about community is that it doesn't really belong to anybody in particular. And today, more than ever, Elon and I see that everybody's the teacher and everybody's the student, so it's like Elon and I don't have this kind of like ego that we've done all this work. And certainly maybe we're a little further down the path with you. And we had a mentor like years ago when Elon and I first started our business, and he was making like, $600,000 a month or something like that. Elon and I were scraping pennies together and trying to figure out how to get on flights without becoming bankrupt. And and he would tell us, you guys are just like me. And we're like, okay there, boss. And he would just simply say, the only difference between me and you is time. And I think that's the one thing that we all get to kind of look at is, how are we investing our time? What are we committed to? With today being obviously a big election in the United States, like, you can get involved in the news and commit your time to getting fear mongered all day long and have that be your experience. Or, you can do the inner work like we all do, because here's the reality. We're all dealing with an unknown future all the time. Anything can change at the drop of a hat in our lives. There's plenty of things outside of our control. And the one thing that we can take responsibility for, maybe not be in control of, but certainly be responsible for, is, where do we give our attention to? How do we give our attention? What's the quality of that attention? Where am I committing my awareness and my consciousness to? And I don't know about you guys, but we have been given this pretty fucking cool gift called life and consciousness. And like how you use that and how you let other people take that energy, or where you decide to where you choose to give that energy, really makes a big difference in the quality of your life, right? And the whole of society has kind of been hypnotized and staring at little screens, which is an ironic thing to say while broadcasting on people's screens. But so I take that irony. But the point is that, like, the work here, and I hope this is why you guys are here, and hopefully why you're listening to these conversations, is that, there is dynamically kind of, multi-dimensional worlds that human beings get to live in, but two that are easy to discern on the surface, which is our external world, the things that are happening around us, our physical world, the objects we interact with, the people we interact with, the relationships that we have. And then I would say even more importantly is our inner world. Right. And the quality of that inner world in our experience, 100% plus, if there is such a thing, it dictates the quality of your outer world.
It must.
And I say this all the time. I say, whether you buy yourself a ticket to go on vacation, or you buy yourself some object that gives you pleasure for, a period of time, or any experience that you really sign up for in life, like at the end of the day, what you're really caring about, I think, and you guys, feel free to chime in on this and have your own musings about this. So I'm just going to offer up my story, and you get to kind of look at your own life experience and see if it feels true or not for you. Is that you really, you buy anything, you invest any money or time into something because the way it makes you feel inside. And so we're kind of in this reverse polarity right now in our consciousness and in the way that most of society operates, which is they try to change something outside of themselves to make the inside feel better. And the reality is it may do that for like a short stint, then you kind of find yourself in these old patterns again. And I think that's why we're all here. This is why Elon and I have been investigating consciousness and healing work and transformation for 22 years, because we notice, as you probably noticed, that constantly working on the external world and trying to change it and bend it to your will really doesn't add a lot of satisfaction to life. You're just a hamster on the wheel chasing the next high, essentially, and trying to make yourself feel good. And something unusual and beautiful, and I think holistic, begins to happen when you turn within. Now, if you're earlier on this path, or, potentially like dealing with more trauma in your life, turning inwardly can feel extremely challenging. I grant you that. Because when we pause and we take a moment in our lives to be with our experience, oftentimes that experience feels extremely uncomfortable, especially if we're not familiar with doing that. And in the beginning, I would say more so than later on when you become more adept and masterful at being with your inner world. A simple experiment here is, how do most people feel when they first meditate? They feel a little disoriented. Their mind is kind of all over the place. They're tired. They start noticing all these qualities in their experience. And these are usually the qualities that they're kind of running away from and trying to avoid. And in the pause, something happens where the part of us that keeps running and moving and trying to make stuff happen is like a little upset, because it's like this real addiction to just keep doing, making stuff happen, trying to find safety, right? It's like being on meth kind of all the time. Yeah. But like when you pause and you look inside, it's like the system's like, oh, and then it starts moving all that energy that can, quote, feel uncomfortable at first, but eventually, like all energy, it's just kind of moving through, and it's just kind of the way that our system cleanses itself. So in a world that's gotten extremely adept at moving, getting, sacrificing, the odd part is that the most fundamental true nature is just sitting there and being with the experience as it's arising. And it's the one thing that most people seem to have no skill level at all, including ourselves, up until we did. And so my favorite quote, I tell this to my kids all the time, I say, what's hard today becomes easy tomorrow. And it just requires practice and a choice to be committed to something, to practice. And look, if you're here, you probably agree with some of the framing that Elon and I give to the spiritual and ethereal and, transformative conversation. And I think Elon and I say this, that we're not particularly special in any sort of way. Or what makes us special is two things: our commitment to the work that we've done over 22 years. I think that is special. It's rare to see people that committed to their development. And the second thing has been like our ability to take kind of maybe what could feel like complex spiritual ideas or ethereal ideas and simplify them down and boil them into language and experiences that make those kind of experiences accessible to anybody. And I think that's what Elon and I have developed as a skill also, as orators. So I kind of wanted to open with that today. And it's really an invitation for you guys to like be in this work and be even part of these Tuesday conversations, not to expect to come here and heal everything in your life, but come here to like either just to plug back into the community, get some resource and juice, even if it's to inspire, motivate yourself. I don't particularly like those last two because I don't think that they have lasting change hooked into them. Like inspiration and motivation to me is like running a car on fumes. You're going to probably go a few more miles on those fumes, but it's going to run out pretty soon.
Correct.
Like what keeps me motivated and inspired, I couldn't even tell you what sources that. I just know that I want to maximize my efforts in living a life that makes me as peaceful as possible. Living in a state where I feel safe, where I feel good in the bonds in my life, the relationships that I have, that I can set clear boundaries when I need to, that I can ask for support, that I have some relationship with divine energy or divine intelligence. Like those things I think matter to a lot of us. And so like those are the things that I used to focus on hardcore. And the only reason I don't focus on that today is because I realized that by doing the practices that Elon and I took us again many years, decades to cultivate and understand and realize the impact of them, by just doing those practices, everything I just mentioned is guaranteed gets better, goes up, is on an incline of progress. And so I know that I don't have to focus on those things anymore. They are just symptoms of this lifestyle that Elon and I have committed ourselves to. And the cool part is that if you're new on this journey, what we're proposing is just how to walk this path. How do you walk a spiritual path? How do you walk a path of healing? How do you walk a path of transformation? And we're going to keep pointing at that path for you over and over and over and over again, because that's what people who went before us did for us. They didn't reveal truth to us. They just kept pointing at the path that reveals the truth to you when you keep walking that path. And wherever you are in your journey is where you are in your journey. And I just want to tell you right now that we've never seen anybody take a shortcut on that journey. We've never seen anybody figure out a secret hack or a secret code or a 3-step process that, has them skip decades ahead of time. And it's really important to go through whatever experience that you're in with as much love and compassion as you possibly can throughout this process, because being a human being and life in general is a really disorienting, complex experience. And especially when you're like a soul embodied in this like third density reality with this egoic mind, it's like, like what is actually going on here? And our reality is also showing us that, right? This kind of like chaotic acceleration that's happening. I think, to me, I'm not particularly worried about it. There's like some human stuff that certainly comes about it, because I've just seen for most of my life how everything just kind of unfolds the way that it's supposed to. Whoever gets into office today or tomorrow or next week, and whatever happens after that, I just kind of trust that it's all going to go well. And even if it doesn't go like well in the next few years, it's like it's serving something higher. It's serving our awakening. And sometimes, quote, bad things have to happen on this planet, which I know none of us want more suffering. I'm not for more suffering at any level, but sometimes those things have to happen for us to be jarred, awakened from a slumber or from procrastination. And you could see this throughout history with big events and how it impacts consciousness and changes and evolves our world. So, our desire is to give you here a community that you can plug into, that when you are feeling dysregulated, you could put your hand out and say, I could really use support right now. Because we all get dysregulated. Elon and I get dysregulated. We have teams of people around us today that we reach out to when we're in the suffering, or when we're in a process, or we're in a part, when we're getting anxious, or when we're finding ourselves not being peaceful at home, or, maybe more impatient than we would normally be with our children, or not as connected with our spouse. Like, these are all telltale signs. Like, I need somebody here. And we did work for a really, 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 really long time, not really understanding the impact and necessity of working inside of a community of people, even though we always went and did work with people, but it was never like direct support. Like, here is how we support each other. And the cool part is, and I think the easeful part is that support is not hard work ever. And we show you guys very simple presence practices here, is how you can support people. And a lot of us, I think all of us that I've ever asked in this community, and just say yes in the chat box if you agree with this, want to serve humanity in some way, even if it's just one person, to better their lives. Would you say that you want to serve humanity and make life on this planet better in some way? And I truly believe that service is kind of like built into our machinery. Like it's like breathing for us. We require it. It also helps us self-reflect on ourselves, because we all want to know that inherently we have a good heart. We're good people who want to do good things in this world. And I'm nearly positive that 99% of you, given time and resources, would be out there doing something to impact this planet positively, and the species and animals and nature in some positive, whatever sings to you. And if that's the case and you feel like, fuck, I don't have any of those things, here's the cool part. By working inside of a community like this and just sitting with somebody for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in presence is serving them so greatly. Like, you're changing this person's life in that moment. And so, part of the cool thing that's happening and happened here for a long time now is that it allows people to feel that they are like, they have something that really makes a difference in people's lives. And maybe it's not money, and maybe it's not whatever, right? Like giving somebody a book or clothes or whatever it is that other people need, but it actually gets to something that's much deeper in this person's system, which is the underlying foundational, fundamental place that they're living their life from. And you could really impact somebody's experience by simply sitting with them in the ways that we teach you guys to sit with each other. And I think there's some real beauty in that. And I hope that you guys see that, and that it gives you fulfillment, and that like you're not only worthy to get support, but you're also worthy to give it. And you don't have to be some fucking guru or have a million letters after your name or a PhD doctor to say, yeah, I can sit with you right now and give you my presence while you're going through that experience. And that to me has been one of the most precious and impactful things that I've allowed myself to recognize about myself. And to just let you guys know that from where I sit, we just cannot heal ourselves on our own. We got to heal inside of the community. We got to heal inside of relationships. And so like, if you're here and you're new, within the next few days or weeks, like you'll be able to do that for people if that's what you want to do, and also get that from other people. And that can really, really change more than you probably realize from where you're sitting right now, the trajectory of where we're going. I mean, and I mean that as a species, because if you want the change that I believe we all want, like I don't care what side of whatever aisle you're on, I think we can all agree that whoever people vote for or whatever governance they choose or whatever path we go down, at the end of the day, everybody just wants more safety. Everybody wants to feel more peaceful. Now, we may not agree on what that looks like, what energy gets used to create those results or whatever it is, but fundamentally, at its core, I assure you, if we sat down with everybody, be like, what do you care about? They'll be like, I just want to feel safe. I want to be around my family. I want to have the resources to do as I please. And I want to have basic human freedoms. Everyone be like, yep. And so like, I think that across the board, we can all agree on is what we want. And so I think the misnomer and the confusion in the public is that it's going to be an externally crafted thing that it's going to come from.
Someone's going to give it to you.
Yeah, that someone's going to give it to you. That's going to come from government, or it's going to come from a person or some leader or whatever the fuck you think is going on. But the reality is, as I've seen it, is you cannot buy or create safety. You could stick every missile defense system around every border on planet Earth. Like, I don't know about you, that doesn't make me feel safe. You can have more nuclear bombs than the next country over. That doesn't make me feel safe. Like, you can have the best president or the most best speaker, and that doesn't make me feel safe. Because safety is not earned; it's cultivated. It's an inner experience, and it's why I started this whole conversation about pointing inside. Because what Elon and I have worked on now for close to a decade is like, how do you cultivate safety in the system? And when you operate from a place of safety, when you operate from a full place of resource connection, that is mirrored into your reality. And then while a lot of the same stuff is happening in the world to a lot of different people, the reality is, in my interpersonal experiences, I believe, because I can't obviously navigate everyone else's experience, is that I'm just suffering a lot less while there's all these upheavals in society and changes that are happening very quickly, that a lot of people, like every day, their emotional roller coaster they go on by depending on what the headline that comes out today, or, what this guy says, or what that person says, or whatever it might be. Like, they're just living in like this ping pong, pendulum experience of emotions and negative thoughts and worry about the future. And it's like, you can do that if you want. But again, like, nobody really knows what's coming down the pike. Like, nobody really knows. We think we know, but we have no idea. And throughout our history, I'm talking about human history, we have seen extraordinary wild cards that nobody saw coming, that nobody could have planned for, and that have seismically changed society or changed its direction, usually and hopefully for the better, even if what preceded it was actually quite horrible and quite terrible. So that's your choice. Your choice is you can plug into the quote matrix machine and suffer, suffer like most people suffer. Or you can commit yourself to these processes and at the very least suffer a lot less. I don't know if the human experience can be completely free of suffering until we're like fully awakened and enlightened, but at least you can diminish and decrease the amount that you suffer and the rides that you go on quite significantly and dramatically, and not in as much time as you think. So hopefully that lands for a lot of you guys. Thank you for being here. And then I'll kick it to you if you want to share anything, or you want to.
I was just going to say that the even before I was meditating and like I was just, this conversation came to mind, and it's funny you were talking about very similar things. I was present to two things that I wanted to share. One was how I'm constantly in awe of how this work keeps improving. It honestly, when I check in, it blows my mind. You know, we had that session with the people from Colombia yesterday, and like the tracking that you and I are starting to tap into, like this whole new level, right? The way that I can experience a group field and the people in the field, the way that that's impacting my everyday life, the way that when I drop into a 10-minute mini within the first 30 seconds, I'm already like in that state. Like these things that seemed so far away from me, that I would look to our teachers and mentors and go, wow, like these people are just these uber talented freaks, you know, wizards and witches that like I will never become. And I'm doing those things. Like that is my experience of life. That's astounding to me. And I don't know for you guys, Guy and I spent 15 years doing very traditional type of personal development work. So mindset work, all that kind of stuff that is kind of the personal development world. Dedicated. I mean, like hundreds of thousands of dollars spent, day in, day out. You know, like we didn't read 3 books and we're like, okay, we're going to be coaches. I mean, we were diligent. This is something that was our everyday life. And 15 years after, still dealing with the same shit that I was dealing with when I started, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? The analogy I use is, you know, if you went to a personal trainer and you were like, hey, I really want to lose these last 30 pounds. Can you imagine if 15 years later you were still trying to lose the same 30 pounds? Like there'd be something wrong, right? Like you would kind of stop and go, maybe this is not working. So I always tell people I'm a very slow student, apparently, because it took us 15 years to figure out that, you know what, this isn't really like the end all be all path. And I'm not saying that those 15 years were wasted at all. Don't hear that wrong. I am adamant in the belief that I had to have those 15 years of training to create the foundation to receive what came next into our lives. And that was very, very important. There is no skipping steps. You know, so when I talk to someone on the phone and they're looking to work with us and they've been at this for 5 years or 10 years or 15 years or even 30 years, and they're starting to feel the stuckness of, oh my God, all the books start sounding the same. And I do all these programs and I have these results. And then all of a sudden they're like trickles and trickles and trickles. So I run and find the next one. Guys, we've been through and done the exact same thing. Yeah, Ruth is saying 75 years, right? And like, Ruth, for whatever reason, this was your path and now you found us, right? So however that shook out, I don't know why. I don't know why each soul has its different purpose and different path. What I do know is if you have found your way to our home, to our community, to this work, I'm like, for me, I'm not telling you what to do, but for me, I am literally like on hands and knees, head down and deep bow for gratitude for being able to receive this level of work in this lifetime. I was just as grateful, by the way, when I received the personal development work. Guy and I started, he was 19, I was 21. Like we started really, really young. You know, a lot of the ruptures and wounds and heartaches and all the stuff that people have been through 30, 40, 50 years, like we didn't have because we started so early. So even to that, I'm like, thank you for our souls leaving enough breadcrumbs for us to catch them and see them and follow them. And if you're here, whether you're listening to this on a recording, on a podcast, you're here live, whatever it is, like the transmission is the transmission. I want you to get, this is not the everyday conversation. Your soul is ready to receive something that maybe your human mind is still in resistance to. But if you're here receiving this, you must have done something right to get you to here to hear this, because I don't know if you know this. This isn't shit that lots of people are talking about, writing about, or training about. This, I tell people this all the time. This is the last program you will ever invest in if you choose to dive in. No joke. I'm not saying there might be other things that like you inquire about or you're interested in, but the place and the part that's going to choose anything down the road, if you do, is going to be very, very different than what it is now that's choosing. The part that's choosing now is, I need more information. I'm missing something. Like, I have to have it, right? It's why we read all the books. I've read hundreds of books, hundreds, thousands maybe, of personal development and spirituality text. About a year and a half ago, I stopped. I no longer read personal development books. I will say, though, I am reading the new Stephen Kessler book. But, like, I have no urge. I have no desire to read them. And the reason is this. If you've gotten to a place in your reading that all the books start sounding the same, let me be the one to burst the bubble. There is no magical book out there. There isn't going to be one that like flips it on its head and you go, oh my God, this is the one that I've been waiting for. Why didn't anyone tell me? They all sound the fucking same. Do you know why? Because it's this person takes this content and makes it into their acronym or their ideology or whatever it is, but it's the same thing because it's all pointing to the same thing. And ultimately, the pointing is to go within. Every real spiritual healing, personal development book is to go within. The problem is that we don't know where in is. Mm-hmm. So we think in is in here. Okay, I'll go deeper in here. I'll understand more. I'll learn more. I'll go deeper. But none of that makes a fucking lick of a difference. I talk to people that have been in therapy for decades and they're still stuck where they're stuck. Do they have all the explanations and all the labels and all the knowing of why they're stuck and how they're stuck and all the things that got created after? Yes, absolutely. Is it making a difference in their life? No, not really.
Yeah. It takes courage to drop the labels.
Yeah.
It just does. To not try to put yourself into any bubble. You know, like at the end of the day, it's like you're either regulated or dysregulated.
Yeah.
And then, you know, science and psychology tries to find all these names to like put you into a box. To which kind of dysregulation do you have? It's kind of like, you know, the way pharmaceutical industry kind of keeps coming out with like new pills for things many of us never even thought of or heard of or whatever it might be, right? And so like it can feel empowering to put a name to something until you just put yourself into this box that you have this like amalgamation that needs to be like frantically worked on. And what we have just seen over the years is that when people put themselves under a microscope, it doesn't matter how smooth the surface is under a microscope, it's jaggedy. You're going to find it. Mm-hmm. And so with psychology and stuff like that, it's like, even with personal development, and bro, I didn't mean to kind of take over, you can jump back in. You know, it's like people are like, and we did this too for 15 years. I was like, I want to work on that. Like my money, my mom, this relationship, my health, like that's what I'm ready to work on. Okay. And I'm not saying there's no value in that. You know, like the things that personal development taught Elon and I is like, number one, you're responsible for everything that happens in your life. That one idea right there will completely change your life. You know, if you're willing to take 100% responsibility for everything in your life changes immediately. The second one was, what does it mean to live from integrity? Like to actually live from a principle of integrity, because I did not know what that meant. I had morals. I lived by scruples and morals. I didn't live by integrity. Those are two very different things. And, you know, we can have a whole conversation on that, but I'll leave that alone for now. And the last one was how to act in the face of fear. Where other people stop, we learn how to just keep moving forward, just keep going, just keep taking action, right? But that world will have you think that you're going to become this empowered individual and that you're going to raise your awareness, you're going to know all these things and suddenly be so wise that you will be able to catch or stop a response that happens within you in a fraction of a second. like getting upset, like when you get upset or sad or somebody hurts you, like it just happens, right? Like in this moment, it happens. So just give yourself this thought, if you may. Do you think you're ever going to be able to catch that and stop that response before it happens? To me, the answer is no. And again, Elon and I put almost $1 million between the two of us and 15 years of our lives into investigating that. So I'm telling you from great effort on our part, no.
Dedicated effort, money.
Yeah, no, like day in, day out doing practices that definitely worked and showed promise and created transformation in our lives. They improved our lives dramatically. But that underlying thing, that like fear that lives in the system, that scared experience that we're all having, this disconnection, this dysregulation, this nervous system that's wound up. You think there's an insight coming that makes that go away? And I kind of want that to be hopefully a little shocking of an experience, because I would read books and I was sure that I was an insight away from enlightening myself in the way that teachers spoke about.
Yep.
Like for those of you guys that have read Untethered Soul, like he talks about the seat of awareness in there. He doesn't talk about how to access it. He just talks about it and the qualities of it. And the way he talks about it is if you just need more insights. And that is where I got really lost in this game, Elon as well. And it was like this, we kept climbing this mountain. We're like, where is the top? When do you fully come out of this experience and just be able to observe yourself and not get hijacked and pulled into these experiences? 15 years, that never stopped. Had more awareness, was better able to manage them, was better able to cope when they came around. And Sarah, the seat of awareness, like the seat I'm sitting in, the seat of awareness. And so, again, there's a lot of usefulness, as I mentioned, in that wisdom tree. But it doesn't heal the ruptures that are in the system. The autonomic nervous system, these automatic responses, these automatic patterns and loops that we all find ourselves into. You can go do personal development to your blue in the face. I have never seen anybody exit a loop by doing that. Shorten them, become more aware of them, sure, but not get rid of them, not resolve them, not reintegrate themselves. The work that we do here is the exact opposite of that. And it's why we started looking for and getting curious about, okay, there's got to be something else where like clearly human beings can become enlightened. We have sages, we have Buddhas, we have Christ. Like there's a path here that maybe we're not aware of. And I think even in religious texts, there's plenty of good things in there. But when we're learning about those things from the mind and perceiving it from the conditioning of our mind, we miss the point. Because truly, like this life is about having a direct experience. It's not about living in, the matrix that I'm talking about. It's not this government machine. It's the way that your mind works.
Are you feeling inspired by these podcasts? Is this approach striking a chord with you? Imagine taking this journey even further with personal coaching from Guy and I, right from your own home on Zoom. Join us at our next live event. They happen quarterly. It's an accessible, cost-effective way to dive deep into these transformative practices, not just theoretically, but experientially. Attendees often share that they've experienced unprecedented levels of peace, support, forgiveness, and awareness. Remember, healing isn't just a mental exercise. It must be felt and released through the body. So here's a special gift just for you, our valued listener. Visit intuitivemind.live and use the coupon code OLDSOUL to receive 25% off your ticket. The Intuitive Mind event is unlike any other. So impactful that many participants return multiple times, some as many as 10, 12, even 15 times. Plus, once you register, we'll immediately send you a recording of a previous event so that you can start practicing right away. Don't miss this opportunity. Go to intuitivemind.live, secure your spot for our next live event using the coupon code OLDSOUL, and start your transformative journey today. Now, back to the show.
When your mind is shaped and conditioned, 99% of everything you perceive filters itself through that conditioning. And the responses you have come out of that conditioning. And so that's what we get to work with, is understanding it's not the mind that's doing it alone. There's a whole, mechanism here of consciousness that works together. And when it's like, when you're working on, if you're just working on mindset, it's like, okay, you do have a body, like you have a body, you have organs, you have an energetic body, you have this other confluence, right? If you're just working on the mind, then you're just working on the mind. You're not holistically looking at the entire mechanism. And you're certainly not looking at consciousness or awareness, which are really, the mind might be part of that, but it's certainly not the whole story. And so if we can point directly at the seat of awareness and recognize our true nature from that place, this is really what the sages and the Buddhas and the Christs talk about in their teachings. But when you've never even tasted it, you don't even know what you're aiming at. You don't even know what you're looking for. And so it's a great revelation, even to people who've been on this path 30, 40, 50 years. And we've worked with meditators who have been meditating for 40 and 50 years, and they still never learned what we teach here. And the moment they get it, they're like, oh my God, this is it. This is a huge missing piece of the puzzle, and allows for them to begin to witness life as it's arising within them. And then also understand that in that witnessing is where healing happens. And we can rebuild everything from there, because you're then sitting in your true nature, just observing your conditioning versus only operating from your conditioning. And I guarantee you 99.99999% of the human population is operating from that mind and from that conditioning. And all this dysregulation that you see, these wars, this violence, this kind of governments that we have, authoritarianism, everything is sourced from that, and will not change until the source from where it comes changes. And that starts with each and every one of us doing this work and awakening this within ourselves, finding that stability, finding that safety, finding that compassion inside, having safe bonds, because this is not a recommendation. It's a requirement to be a human being, to have these things. And when you cultivate that within yourself, your reality will begin to mimic that. And the people around you will gain from the work that you've done. So Elon and I have told you, like, it took us 22 years to get to these places, but the people in our community are gaining from the work that we've done and other people in this community have done, because those grooves, those energy lines, the examples are here for people to see and directly experience. And so they get to them a lot faster. And that's exactly how we've gotten to them, is we have had teachers that have set those examples for us. And not just in, hey, let me lecture to you and explain to you how I got here, but let me show you, let me feel this experience that I'm talking about, and feel these qualities inside of your experience. And once you feel those qualities inside of your experience, that becomes the guiding principle. Having the direct experience, not having an insight that feels good in the moment, but doesn't really serve the quality of your life in any particular way. And if you guys have any questions, anything you want to like muse over, get curious about, I see Sarah. Let me look at that. So Sarah says, how do you define integrity? Can you go a little deeper on that? I've learned that integrity means the amount of actions that line up with your beliefs and core values. I think we could make a case that that's true. Like what you're saying is true on some level. Okay. But I'll give you the definition that we operate from. And I think it includes what you're saying as well. Is that integrity is just, it's honoring your word. As simple as that. Okay. I say to Elon, hey, by 5 p.m. today, I will do whatever in our business. Being in integrity is actually honoring my word that I created, that I'm going to generate this thing by 5 p.m. Now, where most people take integrity is they become morality police around it. And what I would ask for you is to look at integrity not as a moral rule, because we've all come to some degree from different moral backgrounds, depending on how the social background, the society and country that you lived in. Morality can be skewed this way or that way. And who is to argue why one society would be more moral than another society? That's an insane argument, in my opinion. But like integrity is honoring what you said you would do by when you said you would do it. And there's no morality there. So if I don't do it by 5 p.m., I'm not a bad person by not doing it by 5 p.m. However, what would add integrity is that if, let's say, by 4:30, I figure out that I can't complete that task by 5 p.m., having integrity would be calling myself out on the fact that I can't do by 5 p.m. and then saying to Elon, you know what, I can't do by 5 p.m. I'll do it by 9 tomorrow, or I'm not going to do that anymore. It's just being really clear with my word and then honoring that word. And so for us, integrity is not a moral thing. It's a workability thing. It's just about workability. And so, the metaphor we've used forever is like when a bicycle wheel has integrity, it just simply means all the spokes are in the bicycle wheel. But if I start to remove the spokes from the bicycle wheel, the wheel is going to lose its integrity, and so it will lose its workability. So to us, integrity just simply means the ability, like just having workability in your life. And you guys know that when a relationship lacks integrity, what does it lose? It loses workability. It no longer works. And oftentimes it's simply based on people not being responsible for their word. And oftentimes when people give you their word, they will not say by when. They'll say, oh yeah, I'll do that for you. And they won't tell you by when. They're too afraid to give a deadline. And those two things are what create a lot of workability. Yeah. And then Suzanne is following up with that. How is integrity and intent linked? Well, I think kind of in the same vein, right? Like if I slightly see those as maybe parallel and mildly interacting with each other, but not a direct relationship. Like everything kind of works together, right? Like if you're not able to take responsibility, integrity doesn't really work, right? Intent is really like it's hard to describe intent, although we all know how to intend something. If I say have an intention, you just kind of know what to do. I don't know how you know what to do, but you know how to do it, and we never have to tell anybody how to set an intention. So it's this kind of like built-in thing, right? But if I have an intention, but my life has no workability, I think the chances, like there's no foundation there for responsibility, integrity. The intention is like it's a sinking ship. You don't really mean it, So mostly when people give their word for something, what Elon and I have learned over the years is human beings are pretty wriggly creatures. Like they're like, I don't want to smoke on a Sunday, like they're like, all right, I'm done smoking. By Wednesday, they're smoking again. That doesn't have any integrity. So the intent then to not smoke is pretty weak. And so I think to some degree, it's like, we're not anti-personal development by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's life-changing. Having said that, on its own, you just you spin your wheels a lot and you run in a lot of circles trying to figure out why the pain of the past is not going away. When you marry it with the work that we're offering here, which is the path of awakening, not the path of growing up. I mean, we do both here. For those of you guys who are on level 1, that's our mindset work. That's our growing up path. And then everything beyond that, level 2, level 3, level 4, is all the awakening work, because level 1 is still, lives in the mind. It's still, hey, this is the insight. Here's a distinction. Here's a tool. Use it. But beyond that, everything just becomes about direct experience. So there's no really beginning or end to that work. It's just getting more and more accustomed to being with grander and grander experiences, both, on the quote negative side of like grief, sadness, pain, anger, and then a positive side, which is like connection, safety, bliss, compassion, all those kind of things. And like, they're both equally as important. And so because so many of us live in a mental world, it takes a great deal of effort, especially at the start, to make a shift into living in awareness, not living in our conditioned mind. Because you've done that your entire life. You know that realm. So we're literally helping you generate and come out into your true nature, or at least start tasting your true nature in the sense of what does it mean from the point of view of awareness and energy to live that life. And that's where people just start completely transforming their life in every imaginable way. And that's where you get to take all the personal development work that you may or may not have done with you and elevate it even more, because the foundation from which you do that work from now has a totally different landscape than before. So, intent is just that silent little prayer you say inside of yourself, and you operate from that frequency. But when you don't have responsibility, integrity, those things built in, it's a pretty hollow intention. Is there anything you wanted to remark on, bro, or any questions you want to look at?
Nope.
Okay.
I gotta bounce. I gotta set something up for Aaliyah here.
Okay.
All right. I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So let's see what else is here. Yeah. So Sarah, I think you got it. Yeah. And to me, again, like responsibility, integrity, this is completely distinct from what people do. No fault, no blame. Those things don't work. I mean, they don't work internally. They don't work when you do it with children. Like blaming people. There's an old adage: if you point your finger at somebody, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. That I have always found to be true. Like there's literally nothing to be gained from blaming people, and you think you're holding them liable, but you're not. And this is why most of us, will avoid being responsible, because we've confused it with blaming, guilting, and shaming ourselves. And so, of course, who wants that experience? So we don't take responsibility. But responsibility is simply seeing yourself, your life, where you operate from, as sourcing everything that you're experiencing, and that you're at the center of your experience. I don't know how you can claim otherwise, but for most people, they live a life that they are the victim. They are at the, at the whim of the experiences that are coming in their lives. And again, that's for a lack of it's negligence. That's negligence. That's not allowing us to see that we're both sourcing and receiving. So we're both creating and getting at the same time. And so like what really matters is the quality of the energy that you're carrying in your body. And when that energy, what the energies that would call are like scarcity, overwhelm, fear, that's the energy, that's frequency that you're outputting from your system. This reality, this organic hologram that we call reality, just mirrors that back to you and just creates more of that. So none of those things help. Like if you want to shame and blame and guilt yourself, you're going to see there's going to be a lot more circumstances to shame, blame, and guilt. And you're going to find yourself pointing your finger at everybody else, shaming, blaming, and guilting, and just generating and creating this massive loop of shame, blame, and guilt. And some of you guys have relationships that way, or your life is that way, or you do that to yourself nonstop. I mean, you tell me, how's that going? I imagine not great. And I was like the king of those things. In my teenage years, somebody asked earlier, they're like, why did you get on this path? I got onto it because I was like manic depressive for 6-7 years, probably started around 12 years old and reached its peak around 19. And I was for many years deeply considering and had also tried to kill myself at that point in time in my life. And I was living in an extreme amount of internal pain while being extremely stoic and quite angry on the outside. And I just had it. I was like, if this is what life is about, I am not here to participate in that. And I was very clear about when I was gonna off myself. And I eventually figured out that, okay, look, I can either live with these ideas in my head, or I can go to something that has some other ideas and some other curiosities for me to look at. And I was smoking a lot of marijuana at that point in my life, for like years at that point in time, morning and night. That was just to kind of calm the storm that was inside, or at least that's what I thought I was doing. It's probably not what I was doing. And I went to this class and they asked me not to smoke pot for 3 days. I thought that was fucking insane. And they did an introduction. And at the end of that introduction, they said, okay, if this is not for you, go get your money in the back. Like, go get a refund, go get your money in the back. And I was one of those people that stood up to go get my money in the back, because not smoking marijuana for 3 days seemed like the craziest fucking idea I'd ever heard in my entire life. But I'll tell you exactly what kept me in my chair. This is so weird. Okay. This is how weird life can get. Elon and I have had this thing with the number 22. And there are different periods of my life where like it's just everywhere. So it's just kind of this repeating number. And again, with numerology, I don't know if we just supplant this idea in our head and then our eyes just kind of pick it up in the reality. But like, you know, it's like I'll get change in 22s, like the license plate. When every time I stop in a car, the license plate in front of me has number 22. It's like everywhere. And so I get to this class, and you know, they had like 150 people in this class or something like that. So everyone's name is on the front. But at the end of every session, you hand in your name badge. At the end of every day, you hand in your name badge. And so for the people who are there working the rooms, in order to not have to figure out how to put all the names in alphabetical order, they just do that once, and then they put little numbers on the back. And I know this because I ended up doing that kind of work also, and working these rooms for many years as well. So when I went to go put my name badge down, on the back of my name badge was the number 22 out of like 150 people. And I always use 22 as a way to like tell myself I was on the right path. Like even these days when I have questions, for some reason, the number 22 starts showing up and I'm like, all right, I must be on the right path. The number 22 is here. And so the number 22 is on my badge. And just that, I'm not joking, was enough to keep me in that seat for 3 days, because it just created curiosity right away. So I don't know, you can see that as coincidence. I certainly don't see it as coincidence. And so I went and sat down, and I didn't really know what the fuck they were talking about for 3 days, because I'd never heard any of those things before. But I came to a kind of understanding within myself that I had not taken responsibility for the stories that I had invented about my life. And it was a very specific one that happened around 13 years of age, where one of my best friend's father had a very, very ugly battle with cancer. And I watched a very healthy 40-year-old man lose his life very quickly. And I just, like, my 13 or whatever it was, 12 or 13-year-old brain could not come to terms with what had just happened. And what I specifically remember about that age was thinking to myself, bad things happen to good people. That was just the kind of decision I made around that event. And and it was like a real decision. Like I really made a fucking decision. And this is like middle fingers to God kind of decision. And, if your context for life is that bad things happen to good people and you're a good person, those bad things started to happen to me a lot. And every time a bad thing would happen, I would use it as more evidence and proof that my story was correct. And so, I created this belief, and I then accumulated, as we see online all the time with everything, accumulated a great deal of evidence for my story. And that story became my hell. And I didn't even know that I did that. Most of us don't recognize the moment that we do that. We certainly don't realize. And so when I learned about responsibility, I remember like day 2 of this program, I'm like, it just never had dawned on me that I had made this up. Never even occurred. And I remember I was walking home. I was living in Boston at the time, and I had a 15-minute walk back from Quincy to Quincy Station from the center, which was pretty far from where my college was at the time. And I remember walking for 15 minutes and trying to have this inner conversation and dialogue with myself. I'm like, could it be that I made all that up? And I was walking down the stairs to the subway, and I remember maybe it was the 3rd or 4th step down, and my right foot lifted up. I remember it like it happened a moment ago, because it's just this moment of clarity. And I had this moment of clarity, and by the time that right foot came down, I knew for a fact that I had made up that story. And in that same moment, I knew that I had a choice to relieve myself of that story. And I just immediately knew that I had made it all up. And I went down into the subway, and I kind of smiled for the first time in 6 years. I wasn't big on smiling at that point in my life. And I remember just feeling like a buzzing electricity in my body. Like this was like an awakening experience. Like I suddenly had to relieve myself of basically what was almost half of my life. And more so, these things had built up over time, not just in this period of time, but that kind of cemented some real negative experiences in my life. And I just felt like a different person. I went home, I felt like a different person. I walked into that work the next day, I was like a different person. And that was it. That was it for me. That was an awakening moment that completely altered and probably saved my life. And I don't tell that story nearly enough, but that's what happened to me at 19 years old. And so from that moment on, my interest in what had created that circumstance bloomed. And here we are 22 later, and I'm still as excited today as I was on day one about the potentiality for human beings awakening, for healing, for transformation, probably more today than I was back then, because my knowledge was so limited back then. I just had an experience. I awoken. And that's it. We've been doing that ever since. I've been coaching for 18 years. Satori's been around for almost 14 now, of those 18. And, I'm as much a student today as I was on day one, and still get super excited by watching you guys have all your awakening experiences and seeing people transform their lives. It's the best thing ever. It just is. So I hope that, inspires you. It's like, I don't know what your journey looks like. I really don't, but I know that it's not a weekend retreat. And I don't know why that's making me emotional, but it's like, waking yourself up is it's a lifetime commitment. It's not a weekend retreat. It's not something that's going to happen in a few days, because nobody learns how to live a lifestyle like that in a few days. Nobody comes out of their psychosis in a few days. Nobody completely changes the way their mind operates in a few days. It doesn't work that way. If it did, everyone would be doing it, But again, I want to offer you what feels difficult today in a year from now. It's going to be automatic. You won't even think about it. So do the work, because it's your life. And when this life is over, your consciousness is not going anywhere. You'll probably embody again and bring the same data stream into that body. And so support yourself in this life, support yourself in the next life. I absolutely believe that we do this thing over and over and over again. And this earth thing is just a school for our souls. So you might as well have the best experience you can have while you're here. Might as well have the most delicious, wonderful experiences and relationships while you're here. And might as well bring humanity out of the brink of the psychosis and insanity that it's been living in for thousands of years, because it hasn't felt safe here yet. We haven't cultivated safety yet. So let's work on that. Let's cultivate safety, because if you really want to see the world change, forget who we're electing today or who you're electing in your country, and realize that if you want a safe world, then people need to cultivate safety. We need to feel safe inside, and then the world and the choices and the laws and the people that are elected will be sourced from that safety. And that's how we change the world. That's how we transform everything. And that's a patient process. That's a patient process. And for some of us, that means going through experiences that make us feel very unsafe in order to get the contrast of learning how important safety really is. So if you can zoom out a little bit and see just beyond the human suffering, and hopefully see some of the ethereal spiritual purposes of some of the really difficult things that are happening on this planet. I'm directly impacted by many of those things more than most. I was born in Israel. I'm of Ukrainian descent. So, both of my countries are obviously in terrible situations, and that doesn't justify anything that's happening on either side of those countries. I'm married to a Lebanese woman. My brother-in-law is an Iranian man. So I'm telling you from personal experience, I know peace is possible. I live it every single day. I have more at stake than most in both of those wars. So I have family in all those countries. And this is still the perspective I have. So, that was cultivated from these practices, because the old me would not have had this perspective about those things. So I love you all. Trust in the process, trust in your process, trust in your unfolding. And I'm a few minutes late to our next call. So I love you all. Take care.
Thank you, dear one, for choosing to share a bit of your day with us. We value you greatly. And as a way to give back and help you to deepen these practices, we want to invite you to join our incredible community on Facebook. You can do so easily by going to joinoldsouls.com and ask for an invite. This is our private community where old souls and seekers are able to grow and share their journey with others. We hold exclusive weekly live streams, we answer your personal questions, and offer valuable insights that we won't be able to share here on the podcast. So again, just head to joinoldsouls.com and grab your invite today. And as always, if you enjoy this podcast, please head to iTunes and leave us a review. It's the only way other people can find this show, so if it's making a difference in your life, please share the love. Until we meet again, have an amazing week, dear one.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now, imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and they're all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Did you know using your browser in incognito mode doesn't actually protect your privacy? Take back your privacy with IPVanish VPN. Just one tap and all your data, passwords, communications, browsing history, and more will be instantly protected. IPVanish makes you virtually invisible online. Use IPVanish on all your devices, anytime you go online at home and especially on public Wi-Fi. Get IPVanish now for 70% off a yearly plan with this exclusive offer at ipvanish.com/audio.